As we come back in, you're getting a live look at Times Square. 2 days to go now before the big celebration for the new year. But in the wake of recent terror attacks in Nice and in Berlin, where vehicles were used to slam into large crowds, we're taking a closer look at security for these types of events right here at home. And to do that, we're going to bring in Bernard Kerik, former New York City Police Commissioner. Bernard, thanks as always for being here.
Thank you.
This is one of those events which, as we would say, is a very high-value target for terrorists out there. I mean, how do you go about that?
Well, first of all, New York City has more resources in municipal policing than any police department in the United States. And then them, in conjunction with their partners in the FBI, the federal services, the U.S. Marshals, Justice Department, they do a better job at something like this than you can imagine. Now, keep in mind, when I had the police department in 2001, 2000, that detail probably ran about 3,000 cops. Today it's
for New Year's Eve.
For New Year's Eve. Today it's probably double. In addition to all of the technology that's put in place to look for nuclear, biological attacks, to, you know, the barricades to stop the possibility of somebody slamming into the crowd. You know, a bunch of different stuff has come into play today that we didn't even think about in 2001.
And surveillance, I would think, has really picked up too since. Well, listen,
surveillance in New York City today is quite substantial. Whether it's Times Square, all of the hubs, the transportation hubs, and there's a couple of them I don't want to get into, but the surveillance is pretty substantial.
We mentioned the vehicles. We've seen two very high-profile attacks in France and Germany. It's often, we say this every time we talk about this, but it's very hard to, you can't be 100% safe.
No, you can't be 100% safe, and keep in mind, we've seen it now in France and Germany, but those vehicle attacks go on every single day in Iraq and Afghanistan, in the homes of terror, if you will, around the globe. France and Germany picked up on that type of activity as a result of the others. ISIS, that's their playbook. Al-Qaeda, that's what's in their playbook. That's what they teach.
I wanted to get to this subject too. We mentioned earlier 62 police officers killed in the line of duty this year. That's almost double from what we saw in 2015. What do you put that down to?
I think there's a disrespect for this public rhetoric, this anti-cop rhetoric that really, you know, it's come from the White House, it's come from governors, from senators over the last year, 2 years. You know, there's this major anti-cop rhetoric out there that has given the people, it's emboldened people to go out there and do things that normally they wouldn't do, and that number is substantial. But the number of cops that have been executed, assassinated, sitting in a car, somebody walks up to them and blows their brains out, that number is probably between 200% and 300% increased.
Which speaks to that, you know, the lack of...
That complete disrespect for law and order and authority.
You mentioned law and order. That was a big part of Donald Trump's campaign message, was it's time to bring back law and order. Are you confident he can do that?
I think he will. I think he will. I think he knows it, understands it. He lived in New York City back in the 90s when we were the crime hub of the nation, and Rudy Giuliani turned it around, and Donald Trump witnessed that. So I think that's what he's focused on. That's what he talked about in his campaign, and that's what he'll do over the next 4 to 8 years.
And before you go, I got to mention Chicago. That's a situation that's completely out of control. 763 homicides this year so far.
Well, look, Chicago almost has more homicides than the entire state of Florida. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. You know, I think that has to be addressed in the coming year. It can be done. New York City, Rudy Giuliani has proved it works. It can be done. It can be changed. But you need the right leadership in place to do that.
Well, how would you characterize the last 8 years under Mr. Obama?
Well, look at the crime numbers. Look at those numbers. That's his hometown.
That's his legacy.
If I was his former chief of staff and I was the mayor there, I could promise you the crime numbers would not be what they are today.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much. Bernard Kerik, former New York City Police Commissioner.